that's a fascinating concept, that those are awarenesses that we have and we just have to wake up to them. And I've heard you refer to waking up before. In this age of misinformation and things, people subscribing to conspiracy theories and dismissing science and all of the different stories that are coming up, and people subscribing to them as stories, have led me to the idea that that's where we live. We live in stories. And I think I've heard you say that we're acculturated early on. And so part of that acculturation is to turn off that switch, if you will, of awareness, of our own awarenesses in our own body, and to kind of drop out of the thinking where that culture lives, the things that we've been taught, all that lives, and drop down, metaphorically, drop down into our body to harvest the sensations and the knowings that are there and probably have always been there. Is that kind of a representation of what you're saying? And how can we wake up to understand the stories that we're living in, that we create for ourselves unconsciously? How can we find those and come to truth?
In response to you, I want to say that your use of the word concept, a concept that we have these senses and that we switch them off, it's a concept to the academic world, to the mind that stays entrained to what the system wants it to believe. I know for you personally, and I know for myself, and everyone who actually does see and have direct experience of non-ordinary, or a direct experience of what goes on in themselves, it is not a concept. It is an absolute reality that's tangible, that's visible, that's audible, and on and on. And your example by using that term is kind of the condition of our world. We've been entrained to refuse our subjective experience, whether it's a direct sensory experience or a non-ordinary sensory experience, and we substituted it with psychological experience. And the bent is that we subordinate all subjective experience. That's part of the entrainment in our culture, so that we have psychological experience, but it's not our own. It comes from an intersubjectivity amongst the culture we live in. Now, in my world, there is no objective reality. There are subjective experiences, and that are ordinary and non-ordinary. There's an intersubjective experience that we live, and wherein we vibrate with the memes and mores around us, and we consent to and accept as what's real is what the vast majority of people believe, rather than what is true in our own subjective experience. Now, I talked about the value of subjective experience, and I mean that in a way that is bent on the good, true, and beautiful. Now, one of my teachers used to use the expression, the majority of human beings live imaginally. In other words, we live in our imagination rather in our direct sensory and non-sensory experience of life. And who is that guy that second chapter, opening sentence in the second chapter of his second book said, the human condition, lost in thought. Oh, that's Eckhart Tolle. We're lost in thought. Well, the reality is, as human beings, we are utterly subject to influence of circumstance going on around us. If we see something constantly or hear something constantly, and it can even be a one-off event, things get into us, and we believe that they are ourselves, or there's a legitimacy to what we're aware of, and then we start believing things that are false to fact reality, and we carry on acting as though we are true, and we are convinced in our experience. So So there are lots of people leveling a lot of theories nowadays, and it's problematic. Now, there's another thing going on that in the military it was called psychological operations. That's where military, when they come in, they might make a lot of noise with some crazy loud music, or when they have prisoners of war that they want to interrogate, they keep them awake and have loud music, or the way it plays out is that an event happens and they publish what factually happened, and then they publish another point of view, and another cause, and another cause, and another cause, so none of us know what to believe. And we'll read or see different stories about an event, and because of whatever underlying bent or something we have inside ourselves, we'll settle on one of these and believe it's factual and disbelieve the others. And that's the real pandemic of our times, or one of the real pandemics of our times. And so people believe, well, you need to wear a mask now, or people believe, no, that takes my rights away. And it exacerbates the circumstance of our life. And my interest in subjective experience is separating oneself as much as possible from the input from out there, and orienting with a part of one yourself inside that is body-centered and grounded, and something that's devoid of any intellect, that is an experience of what is genuine for this self. If he or she were to set aside everything that I've learned, and to open that kind of an awareness, that's what intrigues me. That's what furthers not only humanity, but it furthers enabling us to do what I think we're here for.